Hey, how are you? I am fine. Can you tell me the story about fairies again? Okay. Yeah, in the strange world of little fairies, there was one in particular, who wasn't like the rest. She was not the cute, perky kind, but quite the opposite. Her name was Dusk, right? Do you want to hear the story or not? I'm sorry. Where did I leave off? Oh yeah, the opposite. On that note, her parents decided to name her Dusk. She was nothing like her next-door neighbor, Moonlight, who was perky and cute. On the grand festive day of the fairy world, the other fairies thought it would be funny to play a little prank on her. They began telling her stories of the edge of the world, and how monsters lay there waiting for little girls to come along. The other fairies thought it would be a wonderful idea to bring the little mysterious one to the edge. The other girls were too scared, so it was just Dusk and Moonlight. It's almost to my favorite part. After fluttering through the branch-covered paths, there they stood staring up at a door. The two of them quickly slid into the keyhole and flew across a river. Everything was perfectly fine, the water was sparkling and blue until they reached the middle. In this particular area, they found a whirlpool. One of the two was very fascinated, and I bet you know who, and she went into the whirlpool. The wind was too strong for Dusk to get out in time. The young fairy got sucked in immediately. Moonlight didn't know what to do, so she flew back home and told the rest of the fairies that Dusk went on a hike. This is the part I hate. Meanwhile, in the whirlpool, Dusk was very amused. She had never seen these things before. When she reached a little below the half line, she began to feel pain. She could feel all her bones aching and body going numb. Dusk had no idea what to do. She couldn't talk anymore. Her eyes were open for sure, but everything went pitch black. She began to see a bubble forming, and that was all she ever saw again, because it soon popped. Dusk could feel something gnawing at her, slowly eating away at her. She finally realized she wasn't eaten by a monster, it was her own spirit eating at her. Oh my goodness, I always get surprised at this part. After a couple of days, the other fairies noticed that Dusk had not come back yet, so they went on a search. They looked all over, but they couldn't find a trace. Everyone was too busy looking for Dusk that they didn't notice Moonlight fluttering away with her little wings. She quickly went back to the whirlpool and tried looking for Dusk. Moonlight found her, and a whole bunch of other things too. Moonlight knew she couldn't cross the middle line, so she found a long pole and pulled Dusk up. All the story almost done. Without knowing what happening, Dusk began to have her sense of touch again. Things kept getting brighter until she reached the surface. When her face hit the surface, she began gasping for air. She was still all fuzzled up, but was whole. Dusk started flying frantically. She didn't know where, but she flew. Dusk somehow found her way back home with Moonlight chasing after her. When the other fairies saw Dusk enter the community, they all grabbed for her and pulled her to the doctor. After a few days, Dusk was back to normal. Moonlight was awarded with a medal for saving Dusk, but was enforced into community service for getting Dusk into all that trouble. A couple months of this, and everything should be fine again, they hoped. And that's the end of the story. Thank you for telling me the story. It was my pleasure.